Welcome to Talking Out Cloud, the podcast where we discuss the latest developments in IT and cloud. And in today's episode, networking. Is it really that complex? Let's talk. With me, Gert-Jan.
Hey, Wesley.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Time to talk about networking, our favorite subject.
Definitely. Yes.
Is it, to start, is it a trait that is slowly disappearing?
The networking.
The knowledge.
The knowledge. Yes. I think we talked also in other podcasts about back in the days. But when we started in IT, we need to know how networking was going. And I think with the public cloud and also the next generation, seeing portals, browsers. Hey, I click on that button. Hey, there spins up a machine. But underneath, nobody sees the network anymore.
No.
But yeah, it's definitely important.
My head works in weird ways. I'm just thinking we need to rebrand the podcast to Talking Out Cloud back in the day.
Back in the days, yeah. It's a gimmick.
Yeah, no, I agree. No, but it's true what you're saying right now. We just click and things happen.
Yeah, it's there.
And I think everyone who just right now, if you get into IT, let's say you're 18, 19, 20, you think I'm going to go into IT. And you study, you go to school, you learn about clouds because we do clouds.
Yeah.
And we deploy something in the public cloud and then things happen, like in the background. But I mean, networking happens. Yeah. Something needs to connect A to B.
Yeah.
If I have a server and needs to connect to another server, there's networking.
Yeah.
People don't learn about that anymore. So when it breaks, people don't know what's broken.
No, definitely not. And when we started at school, we learned about subnetting, how to enable internet to a machine because that was not out of the box. You need to fill in IP addresses and that sort of things. And now it's just there.
How many people you think still know that just got out of school know that 255.255.00 is the same as /16?
I don't think so.
I don't think people know that anymore.
No, I don't think so. No.
We used to do actual physical. I mean, that is probably something we'd never have to do again unless we work in a data center, right? Like the patching of the cables and
how the cable, how the UTP needs to be attached, which order the
when you the colors, UTP.
If it's a crossover of it's that sort,
Oh, crossover cable. That was from computer to computer, and then if you put it in a switch, then that was like
it's maybe 20 years ago.
The physical layer of the OSI model.
Yeah,
but I mean, we don't have to do that anymore. But it's still good to understand that how things work. And I mean, I think it's a good experience that back in the day, you got to go to a patch rack and then patch everything. Cable management that could be so satisfying.
Definitely.
And then we had to configure the switches ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Like do the Cisco stuff or the HP.
Making VLANs.
Yeah, VLANs. I once got my CCNA back in the day. Cisco Certified Networking Associate, I think.
Hard exams, Wesley.
Yeah, but it was cool. I mean, the exam at school before we got to do the CCNA, I did it near here actually. We got two switches and we had to configure them, and then it was like a story behind it. Like you have to connect Shanghai to London, and you have to do, and then you have to configure, and you go into the switch and you do copy run start. Yeah, that you write it to flash memory, so it saves that, and you had to do the routing, and you had to understand the ARP tables. And we no longer have to do that.
No, and I'm glad that we don't. But the information we had is valuable.
The knowledge we learned back then, and that's something people don't learn anymore.
No.
It's so valuable even in public clouds because
definitely.
I think you could say that in public cloud, networking just became more complex.
It's different, I think. It's complex and different. Like we said, you had a router like 5 years ago and you plug it in and you connect some on-prem network with it. Here, if you start up an Azure resource, a network resource, in the background, it doesn't plug in a router. It starts maybe 1, 2, 3 servers on the background and do the routing software in a software layer. So the module is different. But you don't see that on the forefront.
No, but you still need to understand it. I mean, now, and I got into public when I did like networking and sysadmin stuff. Then there was like 2 or 3 years where I did not do any technical roles, and then I got to Intercept and I started doing a technical role again. I stopped with the traditional networking and I skipped the whole software-defined networking part, really. But that's when SDN, or software-defined networking, became a thing. Yeah. And essentially everything in cloud is software-defined networking.
It's software-defined networking. So the routing is a little bit different when you do it on a hardware level.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And the subnetting is a bit different. But before we get into that, I mean, is networking still a thing? I mean, it is the backbone that powers everything that we do in the public cloud. I pulled some facts. Microsoft owns or runs or uses more than 600,000 kilometers of networking cable across the planet.
That's a lot.
That's connecting more than 70 Azure regions, and that's over 400 data centers.
So it's a thing.
It's a thing. It's still valuable knowledge.
Yeah, definitely.
And then if you look at the trend, you just mentioned VLANs, virtual networks, virtual local area networks. And then when I started doing Azure, they said on Azure you don't have VLANs. I did some ExpressRoute stuff, and you have a VLAN ID locally, and then that needs to go into Azure. And then they said there's no VLANs in Azure, but there is.
There is
a VNet.
Yeah,
it's a VLAN.
That's
a VLAN. What it is.
That is what it is. That is what it is. Yeah,
I came to that conclusion years after. I had that, but it's a VNet.
It's a VNet. It's a VNet, definitely.
And then within that VNet, we can do subnetting, but that also works different because I used to be able to, let's say, I have a subnet of 172.16.0.0/16. I cannot use 172.16.0.1 or 2 or 3.
You need your IP number plan as well when you do it in the Azure cloud.
Yeah, so every time I subnet, I'm missing the first 3 addresses and the last one.
It's you cannot. Yes, it's basically what you also. True. Yeah.
And then you're thinking, why do you really miss them? But maybe not, because one of them is your router.
Yeah.
That you route to. If you have a network, you have a router, so that address is reserved. Yeah. But you don't see that anymore. No. This is the thing. This is the software-defined networking. We configure the VNet, and then they configure all the magic in the backend.
Definitely.
I don't need to route the traffic myself. It's done automatically.
Yeah.
And then we can pair virtual networks, which, I mean, if you think on how that works, you probably shouldn't, because that's really complex. But so it's a thing, but it's also that I think when does it become important to understand? I see a lot of developers starting to use Azure or AWS or any cloud, and they just deploy something. But then before it goes to production, we need security. Yeah. And then we're requiring isolation.
Yeah.
And that's when networking becomes a thing.
Networking becomes a thing with isolation, definitely, and security.
And how do you do that? Do you connect everything to a virtual network?
No, I think if you speak about it like a design, then you have certain types you can set up for your networking to get the security, like a hub spoke module or something like that. That you route all your traffic through a hub from your different spokes. Or your VNets, you can use multiple subscriptions. You can also use it in different resource groups. But if you don't want that one VNet touches the other VNet, you don't want to attach them. I guess
you don't pair them.
You can isolate it, definitely.
And then would you say that we can do firewalling as well? And you would have a hub and you would firewall.
Yeah, you can. In the hub, you place a firewall, and it can be a network virtual appliance. But I'm a cloud native guy, so you can use an Azure firewall as well. You can say, "Hey, route everything to the firewall," and let's say if you then say, "Hey, and deny everything," then it will go. There's no inbound or outbound traffic to your different VNets. So yeah, you can use that. Yeah, definitely. You can secure it and isolate it. And also keep in mind that that's one way to do it. You can also on the VNet itself, you have also security types to place it on your VNet, like a network security group to get. If you don't want that module, you can say, hey, on the VNet, I have an NSG, or you can also place it on a subnet, by the way, and then say, hey, on the subnet, you cannot, this specific IP address cannot touch the resources in that subnet.
So like an access control list
that
we had back in the day.
That is, the whole principle is being copied in the cloud, I guess. So yeah.
And I think that is the difference is that back in the day with the networking, by default you had no connectivity because the cable wasn't plugged in. In Azure, by default, when you do a VNet, you have connectivity. If something is in the same subnet, if something is turned on, if VNets are paired, they can talk to each other.
They can talk to each other.
You need to implement mitigation, countermeasures to ensure that it doesn't happen.
Before the design, you need to know, okay, which VNet can, or which resource can touch the other resource. If you don't want that, don't touch attach the VNets together. Or if you want some control, use a firewall or use an NSG to isolate some traffic to the different. If you only want, for example, internet and not only HTTPS, okay, you can say that in the firewall or in the NSG.
But this is really hard to configure after the fact, right?
You need to think about it beforehand.
When you design an environment, the first thing you maybe this is the right order. The first thing you do is, how do I deal with my tenants? Do I have one Entra ID, 2, 3, 4? How many subscriptions? What subscriptions? Governance, and then comes networking. And only when you're done with networking, everything else comes. That's
definitely. And I always like the zero trust principle on the network part. So deny everything and then open it, and I know it's hard when you do that in an existing environment, because you don't want to say to the customer, okay, for now you have no functionality whatsoever. But that's why you need to do it in a new when you design a new environment. Say, okay, deny, and then we open small ports, small traffic, small routes.
But when you're saying in Azure, when you're saying zero trust, then you are bound to the hub-spoke model, no?
I think so, yeah.
Because if you, just thinking out loud, in security you have this concept called Swiss cheese. So if you have hub-spoke, everything goes to the hub. You manage everything in that Azure firewall or network virtual appliance, whatever you deploy there. There's a central thing there managing security and network traffic. If you start connecting, if you go from VNet to VNet to VNet to VNet, then on one VNet you could say, all right, so this port is open, but then so there's a hole at the top of the cheese, and then on the next VNet there's a hole at the bottom of the cheese, and the next in the middle. So even though you're only opening one port, you can go through and end up at the center where everything that's valuable to you is hosted.
I think for zero trust, hub-spoke is the way to go. Because your main firewall will isolate all your traffic, and you don't connect all the spokes. You don't want to connect a spoke to a spoke.
No,
you connect all the spokes to the hub, and then from there you can build your network or your landscape.
All right. So the best practice is zero trust.
Zero trust, hub-spoke.
And I mean, almost all Azure technologies that we use these days have integration with networking, right? So whether that's like private endpoints, or whether that's like native integration into the networking like VMs have, or whether that's some sort of firewalling option where you can, allow or deny traffic from a virtual network, right? There's always something you can do.
If it's, for example, if it's an application gateway on Azure front door, you can have the firewall policies for that as well, and you can say, okay, I have a backbone in combination with a load balancer, for example, that route my traffic back to the VM virtual machine, so that it's in private. That the data is, it will keep it in your network, and you have some more security as well. So you have all those possibilities because it's all integrated and communicated with each other.
All right, and then. How hard is it to debug networking? I think that improved over the years, right?
That improved, but also it's a little bit different. For example, if I, like we said, we have multiple IP addresses. Used 10 years ago, back in the days, when you do, for example, a trace it from one virtual machine to another virtual machine, you will get the steps and all the
hops.
IP addresses and the hops. When you do a trace it, for example, in a hub-spoke module to the firewall, and your front-end IP address is, for example, as most of the time is a .4 at the end for the Azure firewall. You will, when you do a virtual machine, then to another virtual machine with an Azure firewall in the middle, you will get a .6 when you do a trace it. Why you get a .6? Because you don't see that in the portal, but it's mainly because also the firewall uses on the background multiple IP addresses. So yeah, there's enough information to troubleshoot networking, but it's also a little bit of a different point of view of mindset when you troubleshoot it. It's different because it's software based, not hardware based.
So you can use your traditional troubleshooting skills for networking, but the results may be different. So like you said, what you see in the portal might not necessarily see what you see.
What you see under the hood, in the background. But there are great options to troubleshoot networking in Azure. You have your network flows, you have your flow logs, you have your traffic log. So
the network watcher.
Network watcher, definitely. If you enable diagnostic for the front door or for the firewall, you see all the DNS coming in and coming out. So there are a lot of options to troubleshoot your network flow.
Yeah, and I think the challenge is that it's a bit scattered around. Where
you need
back in the day, we logged into the switch and we just started typing commands, and now we have to either check the VM or the front door or the NSG logs or something.
Yeah, connect the storage account, spit in all those loggings in the storage account. And that's also a little bit what it makes it maybe sometimes a little bit scary, because you are supposed to say, okay, log everything, but sometimes that's not needed because you don't see through the forest the trees anymore. So you need to you can be more specific, but you don't also need to know where you want to look at.
And log everything is never a good idea, right? Because
it can be expensive.
You don't want to end up with, at the end of the month, your Azure bill or your consumption, 50% is logging. You don't want to end up with that.
No, that's not. And that's also not necessary.
No.
You can also make an argument if you discuss if you only want logging when you have troubles. Let's say I want to create a virtual network gateway, a VPN connection to an on-premise environment, and it's not working. I cannot set the environment up. Then I can say, okay, turn on logging and see if phase 1 or phase 2 is failing on our side or on their side. Mm-hmm. So we can do some more troubleshoot. But it's not necessary to leave the logging on all the time.
No, I agree. And I think because a lot of it is automated away for you, there's less troubleshooting to do.
That's also true. That's also true.
But it's, it's maybe it's not more complex. It's a different way to go about things.
It's a different way. But it's also easy because, like you said, and that's good to mention. You have all the health checks as you do by itself to see if some connections are running, yes or no. So there's monitoring also in Azure that you don't have control of, but it's there. So it will tell you if your backbone of your backend pool is healthy, yes or no.
No. Yeah, that's, back in the day, we didn't
have that. We need to do the pings and we need to do the traces.
Yeah. And we would ping every minute, and when it fails, then...
And this lookup.
Yeah. More often than not, it was the user calling, telling you that your system was down instead of you identifying it yourself.
That is true.
So networking was complex, and maybe it became easier. I think what also makes it complex is the many different ways you can go about things, and the many different features. That having said, back in the day we could do route tables. We can still do that, right? Even though we're saying like everything is automated, and if you connect something to a VNet and you connect another VNet to the VNet, you do the peering. A can talk to B very easily.
Definitely.
You can still impact that flow with UDRs, right?
UDRs, yeah. So if I now say spoke A and I have a hub and a spoke B, and I want to have connection to spoke B, then I need to use that routing table, the UDRs, to say, okay, spoke A can use the subnet of spoke B. And then it will traverse through the firewall to the different spoke, and it can communicate. So yeah, you can use the same. It's the same routing table. So that's also not different for how we used to do it.
No, I think it does become complex when you start connecting your on-prem environment to Azure.
Yeah,
and then maybe not from a VPN perspective. I mean, site-to-site VPN has been around forever.
Yeah,
and we can still do that. We can do the virtual network gateway. We can have a device on-prem.
Yeah.
And then you can, and I mean, you can even, if it's a supported device, which many are, and it's a modern device, you can go to Azure and you go, this is my device.
Yeah.
And it will give you the configuration. You can literally copy paste into your Cisco router or your HP device.
Yeah.
You know? So that's cool. But then you have things like ExpressRoute.
Yeah.
What if I have my desktops running in Azure, but my clients on-prem? I need high speed. I need ExpressRoute stuff.
Yeah, that is...
that's when it gets complex.
That is complex. Because you need to look at two sides. There are possibilities to test that and also to get more speed. To set all the resources. But if there is an on-premise environment and a hybrid environment involved, you have always stuff to think about.
Yeah.
To connect the stuff together as good as possible.
Yeah, and especially ExpressRoute is insanely complex.
Yeah.
I mean, have you ever configured it?
Yeah, 1 or 2 times, but
same. But it's I think it's more an enterprise solution, but we have some customers that run ExpressRoute. What makes it complex is that we have traditional networking.
Yeah.
And then in traditional networking, I mean, I did not do enterprise networking. I had like big networks, but not enterprise level networks. Not tens of thousands of devices.
No.
And then I have Azure, which the networking works a bit different. And then I'm introducing a third party, which because I need a third party for the ExpressRoute. I need a third party that is certified, that has the fiber optics, that has the connection to the Microsoft data centers, and that has the connection to me, to my data center. And then we start doing BGP.
Yeah.
And I mean, I understand networking. I have a background in sysadmin. BGP is a whole other level of networking. That is, BGP is what makes the networking and the internet work, right? It's that's when it becomes complex. And so for me, that's when, I'm going to be honest, you have the ASN numbers, and then they would tell you, oh, this is the number you need to put in. I was just reading like, oh, I've got these numbers. Let's put them in and see what happens.
Copy,
I mean, it's just that was how I was configuring it.
I know what you mean. I know that feeling. I always, if I at that situation, I always love when we collaborate with on-prem stuff, people, the network engineers, to do that together, because also with this you need more people to see it from the A side, but also for the B side.
And what I found insanely annoying is that if you need, you don't want to route your 0.0.0.0 dot everything, because then BGP takes over and it's like automated routing and configuring stuff. So if you do that, then your Azure environment may conflict with your on-prem environment, and everything breaks. Yeah. So you need specific subnets to be routed over the ExpressRoute. But then you need to ask a third party to do that.
Yeah, and then you need to get the good information.
Yeah, so you need to log a ticket.
Yeah.
And then they will look at it. Yeah. And then maybe within 48 hours, you have your routing changed.
Yeah.
That does not work for me in the world of public clouds, where I can do it now.
No, that is what we are used to right now. It's we want to configure something and it's doable. But if we now need to have more dependencies, then it will become hard. And it is a struggle.
I think if you want high performance, a VPN, a normal VPN is fine if you've got good internet connectivity.
Yeah.
If you're a global enterprise and you need high performance, I think you would probably do virtual WAN instead of ExpressRoute.
It's a good solution. Yeah, it's a good solution.
Because that still routes over the Microsoft backbones, but then all over the world, right?
All over the world, true. I think the VPN Gateway itself, just the single one is great for when you are doing a lift and shift to the Azure cloud. Want to connect, have a running environment in your production environment on-prem, and then you want to connect it to Azure and make the proposition to the Azure cloud. But the V1 is I think the V1 is also for more for enterprise.
It is enterprise. It's for enterprises, but it's so let's say you have locations on different sides of the planet, and everything needs to be connected. You want to connect
multiple sites all together. Then V1 is a great solution for that. You can also integrate the ExpressRoute into that, I guess. So
I think you would treat it as the V1 is your central hub.
It's your hub
configuration. It's your hub.
You have your firewall laying there. You can add different VPN gateway, ExpressRoute, and you have your UDRs. It's the UDRs all set in place into the V1. You don't have to do that separately. But it's a different hub. The hub is a great way to explain it. It's just your central management hub.
It's the way you go about the networking, and then so you could even say that you've got VPN, VNet peering, ExpressRoute. And then Azure Virtual WAN is something that's on top of that.
Yeah.
That's not on the same level.
No.
You've got Virtual WAN, and then you can still use all those other technologies, fit for purpose, what you need at that point in time. And okay.
It's a collective, maybe. Yeah.
It's It's complex.
It's complex.
But it's cool. It's cool that we can do it.
You can break your head about it sometimes, but it stays cool.
Yeah. And I think, we talked about front doors, application gateways. There's a lot of ways to secure your networking. Yeah. There is a big difference, though, because on-prem, if I have a firewall, ingress and egress goes over the same firewall.
Yeah.
So traffic coming in. On Azure, that's different, right? You have app gateways, front doors for traffic coming in.
Yeah.
You have a firewall to manage stuff from A to B. And then you have a net gateway for outgoing stuff. There's different... You need different technologies to configure the ingress and egress flow, whereas traditionally you would have one appliance that did both.
Yeah, let's say you want to have, for an example, you have an application, a web application running on an old VM ES server. You want to have your traffic coming into that server, but you want to have some more security. You can use an application gateway or an Azure front door for that one with a different firewall policy, and that controls your ingress traffic to that Azure VM. But at the same time, indeed, if the ES server wants to have some communication to let's say an SQL server on the same site, it uses a different Azure firewall to control that internal traffic. So it is a combination. For ingress, I always say when you have something running on the background, you want to have more control about for your application. Then you need to have something like an application traffic manager, application gateway, or an.
I think it's good that it's separated though.
Yeah.
That it's still because with on-prem or even with network virtual appliances, you can deploy them to Azure as well. It's the same as having an on-prem firewall that you're managing.
Yeah.
The number of times back in the day when I was junior that I configured something, it needs to go in, it also needs to go out.
Yeah.
I don't know why it doesn't work. Any
NLO.
You can't do that anymore because you need to manage your
doable.
ingress and egress separately. So it also forces you to think about your traffic flows, which is important.
Yeah. Yeah, and back in the days, you had maybe also, for example, a NetScaler running in your on-premise environment.
You say NetScaler. We had, was it the Citrix Virtual Gateway?
Yeah, it can also be
that was something like
ADC,
that.
Yeah,
that was old.
That was old, but if you use, for example, the equivalent, the application gateway of the Azure front door, you have more control about your, and it's all cloud native. So that's the cool part about it. So you don't need extra licensing. You don't need, it's just there. So
that's true. One thing though, before we end the show, what you do need to take into account when it comes to networking is, when it's within the same region, you're fine.
Yeah.
But we talked about multi-region in different episodes of this podcast as well. If you do networking and you go from one region to another, it can cost you. If it's a lot of data, it can also cost you quite a lot.
Yeah. I don't think people realize that.
Also, you pay for the egress data, right? To another region. Yeah.
Also, is it also not when you have peering in place from the other region to the other?
You pay for the inter-region traffic, if you will.
Exactly. So that can be very expensive.
Yeah.
And that's only one thing, but you also want to take care of the, like you said, also the latency. So it's a consumption thing you need to think about, but also a latency step. So if you have service that needs to communicate fast with each other, you need to set them in the same region, in the same VNet, I guess.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And, we have to understand that, networking and security, they go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Also, a recommendation I would have for customers or companies wanting to embrace Azure and start using Azure. Yes, it costs money.
Mm-hmm.
No, you cannot retrofit it once you deployed everything. You're likely having to redeploy everything and rethink how you go about the networking.
Yeah.
And you will regret it. It is, do it from the start. Do it well, and be prepared to just pay for it. I mean, it's in the end security.
It's like an insurance, It's like an insurance.
Imagine if it goes wrong. What is it going to cost you if it goes wrong? Definitely. If there's a breach?
Always, for an end user, it is not always fine to say deny everything and then open one port for another.
Mm-hmm.
But at the long run, if there's something happening on your network, you are glad that you have doing some security on your network, if you think about it.
Exactly. And Azure will also tell you that, right? Because if you, these days, if you have an NSG by default, because you need one, it's deployed. If you allow traffic to a management port, like 3389 for RDP, Defender for cloud, everything will start making noise. Like, hey, you should not be doing that.
No, that the security recommendation will add those definitely in your monthly or weekly or daily overview. So keep the recommendation also in your overview.
And then I think, to wrap it up, the conclusion is yes, networking is still important.
It's definitely
important. It's a valuable trait to have.
Yeah,
it's never going away.
No. How beautiful the portal will look like and how easy everything is to deploy. No, networking is not going away.
not going away. We need it.
We need it. And people also need to learn and stay up to date with networking.
And I think from a career perspective, I mean, if anyone is listening that does not have networking skills, like Azure networking or traditional networking, it is worth it. It is. Definitely. It will bring you a lot also in understanding how other things work in the cloud. Like why can I connect from A to B? Why can I not?
Why is communicating A to B and why not?
Exactly.
Yeah. True.
All right. And with that, we're at the end of the show.
Thanks.
Thank you everyone for listening. Thank you for watching. Gert-Jan, thank you for joining.
Yeah, thank you.